Well, we've at least got something to celebrate on this week's edition of Waking the Red Weekly presented by Footy Talks, because somehow we're turning 50. This is our 50th episode, and we are both shocked that we've gotten this far and immensely appreciative of all of you for all the support along the way. To celebrate, we've got one of our favorite people who will be joining us this week, Charlie O'Connor-Clark of CanPL.ca, to discuss the league's opening weekend and look ahead to what we can expect from this season for the Canadian Premier League. And yes, because we're contractually obligated, we'll talk some Toronto FC as well. But boys, I mean, it's a dreary afternoon, isn't it? I mean, I'm not sure if it is where you are. Mike's at a very sunny BMO field, so it's always happy where Mike is. But yeah, how are you guys doing?
Oh, it's raining down in downtown Toronto, Mitch, or should I say Midtown Toronto? It is very much raining here. So perfect weather for England to pull the upset.
It's coming home. Is that happening, gentlemen, or what? But yeah, as Mitch said, I guess that was a rhetorical question, by the way. But as Mitch said, episode 50. Holy cow!
Yep.
Episode 50. Are we doing this right? Are we doing a decent job at this, or what?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I mean, what do we have planned for 52, guys? That's only 2 away, and that's a full year. I think we need to do something special. Hopefully, we can celebrate a TFC win, but I am not holding my breath.
Yeah. Any ideas, guys? Any way to celebrate? Just leave them in the chat, and we'll take a look.
Yeah. Good.
Open to anything.
Yeah. There's a good.
We have a chat. Let me open that. Yeah. Cool stuff.
Good. We'll have some kind of like match game or whatever. That'll be today's. Like we used to do on Tim and Sid. That'll be our our question of the day. Is what should we do for our 52nd episode? But I think, boys, we got so many questions to ask about Toronto FC, especially after this past week. Let's start with that a little bit before Charlie gets here, and we can talk about some more fun stuff.
He's here, so whenever you want to bring him on, just give me a signal, okay?
Fair enough. He can wait. He can enjoy, some Jack Grealish highlights and wait for while we get into at least a little bit of Toronto FC. Look, I mean, the Nashville game, again, it was the same game we've been talking about the past couple of weeks, I think, where Toronto FC played pretty well, especially when they had Alejandro Pozuelo on the field. They looked solid, but obviously don't pick up the result, and we're starting to, and obviously we're far past the point right now where those games need to turn into results, and then they go to Cincinnati, and that's their worst game of the season. It was terrible. They looked awful throughout. There was no ideas. I mean, it just wasn't great at all. How do you reflect on that week? Because it's really hard to find positives right now when it comes to Toronto FC.
Jeff, you go first, because I know you got a lot to say here. Come on.
Honestly, it's nothing that I haven't said before. I'll stress that, it's so, I mean, have you guys been reading what's on the MLS mothership and the hot takes that are coming out? Losing to Cincy is no good, guys. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this. Cincy looking like Barcelona out there. It sucks.
Yeah, they didn't just lose. They got outplayed.
They got obliterated. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Like, there's a part of me that still wants to protest, and trot out all the excuses, like the injury bug and playing out of Orlando, yada, yada, yada. And I do think these are valid. Mike Leach said something on the show last week. He said, when they came out at the front at the top of the season and said, we're not going to use these as excuses. Well, they kind of have to live by it, live by the sword, die by the sword. And they're not doing that. I mean, that Buffery article that dropped this morning, where he had a sit down with Chris Armas, and opened with, there's no excuses, and then proceeded to list them all in bullet points. We're circuit. What else is there to say? It's like it's a feedback loop now. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm with you there, Jeff. Like, I'm actually the one who asked Michael Bradley that question at the beginning of the season. I was asking Michael Bradley just essentially how it feels to get like a real preseason kind of thing under his belt. And he actually cut me off before I could finish my question. He's just like, no, I don't want to hear any of that. I don't want to hear any excuses. We're done talking about excuses. And as Jeff's kind of pointing out, like the last, 2 months, not every answer, but like they're quick to mention those excuses now because that's kind of a way to ease the pain, right?
Well, now we're getting excuses that are from space. Like whenever we foment an attack, they foul us, and that's how you beat TFC. I mean,
Hey, that's what TFC have to do to stop transition moments, man. All they got to do is just foul the other team, and you'll be good. That's the secret recipe.
It's terrible. And again, being this critical, it doesn't fill me with joy. It really doesn't. I do not like holding the club that I love's feet to the fire this profusely. But I mean, it's just, it really is the perfect storm. Like, we get no information from these guys. And when they do, they hold press conferences like the last one we had to suffer through, and then when they're interviewed, it's like, it's a contradiction. Like that if that was an argumentative essay, it would get an F. Right? Like, here's my thesis, no more excuses. Here's my essay body, all the excuses, right? Like,
back in school, let's go.
But you just can't do that, right? And so,
let's move this conversation along. Let's talk. Sorry to cut you off, but let's talk. Like what everybody wants to know. Let's talk Chris Armas, and is he on the hot seat? And number two, do you guys think he's had a fair run, and is it fair to judge him based off this start to the season? Let's start with you, Mitch. What do you think?
I think yes to both. I think he's definitely should be on the hot seat, and I think at this point he's had a fair enough run to see what he can do with this side. What concerns me, though, is almost not just Chris Armas. It's the fact that, like, this collection of talent should be beating both of these teams, regardless of who's coaching. I don't think Chris Armas has shown that he's a good coach by any means, but I don't think he's a bad enough coach that he should be able to take this team and, turn it into something where they're literally last place in MLS. Like, I don't think that could be the case with him. Jeff, you have a point on this right away.
So do you subscribe to the latest tinfoil theory that's going around the WTR boards? There's two of them. The first one is that the team is now playing to lose, like to basically get Armas out the door, which I think is so binary and insane. I mean, these guys are professionals and they have egos. They don't, I don't think they're not the Black Sox, no. Right? And then the other one, which I think is absolutely hilarious, is that Soteldo is pretended to be injured just so that I don't even understand what the hell it is, but it's basically saying that he can't, it's ignoring the fact that if you get a call up to your international squad during a FIFA window, there's pretty much nothing your club can do to stop you. And I'm pretty sure that when he was negotiating his deal with TFC, his appearances for the Venezuela national team without any blockage from the club were part of the negotiations, if not outright stated in his contract. So, this is yet another example of just how bad the wheels are spinning in TFC land.
Sorry, what did you mean by that? I kind of lost me there. With the
people on the WTR boards, and it's so crazy that I almost can't make the logic move. But they were saying something about the fact that Soteldo, isn't it weird that he couldn't play for TFC for that Cincy game, but he was just fine to play 20 minutes for the Venezuela national team in Copa America, and then something along the lines.
That's not how it works. Like,
exactly.
If you get a call up to the international team and your team is playing,
you're gone.
Like, it takes time to travel to that team and get into training camp at the team. You should be with that team no matter what. Obviously, Soteldo was getting healthy with Toronto FC, and the second he was healthy enough to play, his duty is not to represent Toronto FC. It's his international duty to represent Venezuela. It wasn't like he wasn't healthy enough or he was healthy enough and not playing for Toronto FC, because those games overlap anyways. The second he's healthy, he's playing for Venezuela, and that's what happened.
Exactly. So, at the end of the day, a club can't block. It's a FIFA approved international window.
Exactly.
Like, it just doesn't happen. And so there's a lot of tinfoil hat nonsense going around in TFC Live land. And to be completely honest, I see why. We're getting sweet FA here.
So circling back, Jeff. Do you think it's fair to judge Chris Armas? Does he? How do I say this? Has he gotten a fair shake? Has he gotten a fair shake through the first 10 MLS games so far this season?
No, I don't think so. But I
Why is
also
that?
agree with Mitch. Well, I agree because of all the things, all the intangibles, right? No BMO, no fans behind him, no fortress at the lake shore. How important that is, and whether it's trumped by he's made zero tactical adjustments with the players he has in the situation that he's in, is an argument that I think Mitch wins. He's had more than enough time to have incremental improvements, regardless of all the things that are stacked against him. We see none of that. To say nothing of the fact that in press conferences now he's referring to himself in the third person and looks to be completely unhinged. So I think Mitch is right in that regard. Is it fair? Absolutely not. Am I going to jump on the bandwagon of people cherry picking comments from irate New York Red Bulls fans that already wanted to boil Chris Armas in acid to support the narrative that he stinks at TFC? Absolutely not. I think that there's a gray, like in all things, there's a gray area somewhere in between. And the last person that I want to tell me about Chris Armas's coaching acumen is an irate, disgruntled New York Red Bulls fan, right? Which seems to be where everybody's going.
So I'm in two minds about this.
Right.
On the one hand, as you guys mentioned, there's a lot of reasons why it has been unfair to him to start. Let's go through them. The first, it's probably one of the biggest reasons. Like, I'm not even talking Florida. I'm not even talking COVID. The lack of designated players on this Toronto FC team that's been in the lineup. Is that his fault?
Maybe.
We don't know. So hold on. We don't know what happened with Josie Altidore. We don't know if that was more so a team thing or if that was an Armas decision. By all accounts, it sounds like it was a team thing, even though Josie Altidore was going at Chris Armas by all reports. So there's that. Alejandro Pozuelo, who was healthy for every single game last season, he comes down with a couple of different leg injuries. And that's kind of, that's not really Alejandro Pozuelo. Now, we can point the finger at Chris Armas' training sessions, or we can also say that was, a freak injury. Because if you look,
a long time coming because of all the footy he's been playing over the last.
Perhaps, but if you look at like the rest of TFC's injury report, there's like 3 guys on that, maybe even less, of guys who are ready to sort of come back, but are still listed on the injury report. Like the injuries have diminished by number, but it's to whom the players are getting injured, right? And also Jefferson Soteldo, who's played 3 games in a Toronto FC uniform, your third designated player, and then we're not even talking about the Jonathan Osorios, the Ayo Akinolas, the Chris Mavingas. Like this team has had injuries to really key pieces. So that's the first point I want to make about why it's sort of he's not really getting a fair shake, because he doesn't really have the full arsenal to kind of work with. And we know in Major League Soccer how important designated players are. Name me another team in MLS that's winning games without any designated player.
Cincinnati.
They have a lot. They spent a lot, right? Yeah. Obviously, the second reason was COVID at the beginning of training camp. Not just COVID, the fact that it interrupted a shortened training camp already, where players were coming in at different times. COVID obviously, interrupted that training camp. And as a result, it left them with a week to prepare for Champions League games in a different country, as well as the start of the MLS season. So there's no other Canadian team that had to deal with that. That's another reason why it's kind of like they're kind of playing catch up from the beginning, because they didn't have a full training camp under their belt. Obviously, they're playing away from home in front of no supporters. Every game for them is a road match. We know how hard it is in MLS to win games on the road. That's why every time TFC were to win a game on the road, it would be celebrated like a glorious victory, because it's that tough to actually win on the road. And for them, every game has become almost like an away match. So those are real factors that affect, the everyday kind of cycle. But that being said, obviously, I wrote this yesterday, it's a mountain that Chris Armas and his staff have to overcome. Also, I also want to mention this isn't his squad. This isn't his roster. This is a roster he's inheriting, right? And if you want to play a different style of play, or at least, an altered style of play, if it's not completely different, it takes time to sort of integrate that into the team, especially when you don't have the most ideal pieces perhaps you would want for your system. there's also arguments to be made there that a coach would have to adjust and adapt to that system. But at the same time, that was Armis's vision when he first came in to TFC. That's why he was hired by TFC, is because they liked what he brought to the table. So we can talk about, was that the correct decision or not? We can definitely talk about that. But at the end of the day, like, that's tough for a coach. As James Grossi said on the show, I'll bring this up again. It sometimes takes up to 2 years for a coach to really get their real roster and get what they kind of are envisioning here. So on that stance, it's tough. Like he's again climbing a really big mountain here to sort of overcome. But no one expected him to be at the bottom of the mountain still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No one expected Toronto FC to be this bad. And that's where it gets really interesting and really gets really tricky, because yes, he's been given an unfair hand to kind of work with, but he hasn't done himself any favors to support that. Yeah, go ahead.
There's two things that Chris Armas really pushed when he was coming in that would be, the things that everyone got excited about and the things that he talked about, which is this high tempo, high pressing game.
Just say it.
And the young players. Right? Like those were the two things that everyone was really excited about. And for me, the thing is, the players who have played his system the best have been those young players that we just haven't seen for 3 to 4 straight weeks now. And if you look back at all of the best, like all of the times Toronto FC's picked results up 5 times this year. Against Lyon, they've got Singh starting, Prizzo, Schaffelberg, and Okello. The other Lyon game, they've got Okello, Schaff, and Prizzo starting. Vancouver draw, Okello, Singh, Nelson. The Columbus win, Ralph Prizzo's has an amazing game in that. None of them started against NYCFC, but Schaff comes off the bench and gets a goal. Where are these guys and why aren't they playing?
Where has Ralph Prizzo gone?
Yeah.
Can someone explain that to me?
Yeah.
The last time he was on the pitch, he at least started a full game. He was absolutely praised by Chris Armas.
Mm-hmm.
High praise.
And by Michael Bradley.
Good.
And then since then, he just dropped out of contention for starting for this team.
Mm-hmm.
What am I missing there? What happened?
And again, it's who's been replacing it. I mean, for most of the games, it was Arrow replacing him, which made, obviously we've been shaking our heads at that since the start of it. But it's absolutely baffling. Again, I'm all for, I don't think young guys should just get given opportunities just because, that we want to play young players. But one, you have to give them an opportunity to make some mistakes and work through them. And two, if they're performing well, why are you taking them out of the lineup? It makes no sense. So yeah, the Ralph Prizzo one is just pure confusion for me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect time to bring Chaz on and talk about CPL. Why don't we bring Chaz on and talk about TFC first and then segue to CPL? How about we do that? All right.
Sure.
You bring Chaz
go
on.
ahead. Yeah.
There he is.
Hey guys.
He's been waiting to get
What's
his day.
going on, man? I just want to say it's very fitting that we have Charlie on for the 50th edition of Wake in the Red Weekly. Obviously, the former managing editor of Wake in the Red, and doing some big things now with the Canadian Premier League. So, Charlie, thank you very much for joining us, man.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. This is the 50th episode. Damn.
Yeah.
We got a big news for that one.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. We're trying to figure out what to do for lucky number 52. But right now we just want to bitch about TFC. So hopefully that'll carry us through. Hey Chaz, Coverman's time? Is it Danny time? Are we in the darkest timeline?
Worst team in the world kind of situation? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's that bad. There's certainly good players on this team, which maybe you couldn't have said in 2012. But I don't know. I'm obviously not as tapped into TFC as I used to be, but it's a lot less fun to watch them at the moment. That's for sure.
Charlie, you covered this team during, not an ideal state in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
How is it like to cover a team that is super talented but is underperforming? What's that like?
Oh, it's so much worse than if they're actually bad. So much worse. Because if they're bad, then you can you work through it. It can be funny sometimes, and there's like little victories when, as you guys already mentioned. Yeah, gallows humor when like a young player does something great. There's little victories, but when you know that they should be doing so much better, it's certainly frustrating. So I don't know.
Does this season take you back to 2018 at all? Does it give you any sort of flashbacks of that?
Definitely in some ways. I feel like 2018 was a little bit more comical, actually, just because there were so many other things going wrong. The whole team was injured every week. I think every player in the entire lineup got a shout at center back at least once.
Mm-hmm. I think I played center back that season for a game.
Yeah, I remember showing up to the press box with my boots in my bag once.
Yeah. 2018 was just pure shock for most of it. It's like, what? I mean, it was like what I imagine the experience of being an Atlanta fan is. Just like, what happened? We were so good, and now we're so bad. Like,
yeah.
In a way, it's kind of familiar there because you have the Champions League run in 2018, mm-hmm. which derailed sort of the start of the season. I'm not sure if we can attribute that exactly to what happened this season, but sort of similar there. Number two, you have a lot of the off-field stuff that occurred in 2018, and obviously I'm referring to Josie Altidore here. Mm-hmm. And number three, like this team, as mentioned it, this team is super talented, had really high expectations, second in the Supporters' Shield race with 4. They were leading the race with 4 games left to play last season, and they're absolutely just going out there and just, I don't even know how to describe it, but yeah, what do you think there, Charlie? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel here?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, and I'm sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see how much rosier the situation looks when we can go out and see them every weekend when they're playing at home, and I'm sure that'll be a boost. But it's definitely tough just to look at them and not really know exactly how this ends, right? There's plenty of ways. Could totally turn it around at any second. You'd
right.
hope.
We could still be the Sounders, man. We could still be the Sounders.
They're only 8 points out.
Exactly. Yeah, and if they do, get 2 of their DPs in regularly, they could totally do something.
Score a goal.
Impressive. I mean, score a goal. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just really, really tough to gauge. Obviously, it's really hard right now to watch them and to get maybe excited to watch them at the moment. But I think I really don't know. I really don't know where
you're not alone, man. That's the consensus around TFC.
Chaz,
that really
you're running a league through Zoom calls and quarantines, right? we're trying to report on a team in a club in crisis through Zoom calls and the occasional interview that goes sideways, right? How mm-hmm. much do you attribute our disconnect with the club to that? And because you're saying something interesting. I mean, it feels like a fool me once to say, well, let's wait until they get back to BMO. We've done a whole lot of waiting and a whole lot of not changing, right? There's the mm-hmm. angel on my shoulder is saying, wait until they get back to BMO, Jeff. Wait until they get back to BMO. The devil on my shoulder is saying, when they get back to BMO and they get booed out of the stadium by everybody in the South End, it's probably not going to be better. So I just wonder, like, it feels like I want to correct myself from being super ragey every time, but the excuses are getting like really few and far between. And I find myself super ragey.
Well, super ragey Jeff is maybe Jeff at his best.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's definitely true that it's harder to communicate, over these kind of Zoom disconnects, right? Like when you're covering a team, you're not necessarily building a rapport, especially it's a new coach coming in facing media that he's never met before, just trying to explain what he's doing. And I mean, obviously it's not going super well for him with the way that, his words are coming out. And I'm sure that they're probably not coming out the way that he wants them to. And I'm sure he'd probably look back and be like, I wish I kind of said that differently because I can kind of see how that would be interpreted.
We're also being very unfair, taking him literally at everything, right? Like, he says 2 number 1 keepers, and I haven't heard people that are, TFC fans shut up about that, right? Like I haven't heard people shut up about Michael Bradley's 25 out of 10 comment, right?
Oh,
Those
but
are
he
words
doubled
that
down on the
basketball.
two number one keepers
Wait,
recently.
Is this TFC fans or is this you, Jeff?
No, this is people on WTR
People
that
are
are like,
saying.
you know,
No, just kidding.
yeah.
Yeah, but no, going back to that two number one keepers, like he said it more than once. Like he's
Not
like,
doing himself any favors.
Yeah, you're supposed to be media trained. I mean, part of the job is obviously speaking to media, so that has to be taken into account. Now, I'm not
But
saying
he's not Greg Vanny though. You can be
no,
media
yeah,
trained all you
that's
want.
unfair. Yeah,
But that guy was a you know, he was a master of it. So damn, you know, horrible time for Armis to step in.
I mean, it's not help. Like if he's winning, he can go out there and say whatever the heck he wants. When you're 1-7-2, every word that you put out there, especially in, like you said, the Zoom era, it's going to be scrutinized. That's just the way it goes, right?
I think you can definitely say that both things are true, that it's an obviously terrible situation and like a lot worsened by all the circumstances, but also they have been playing well. It's, you know, you can question the coaching. Both things can be true at the same time, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, here's a real question. We start winning, does it all go away? I mean, do the Armis out people crawl back into the Armis on train? I'm inclined to think yes. I mean, the pitchfork mob is the pitchfork mob for a reason, right? They're just, you get them mad and then point in a certain direction and off you go. So, you know,
Gareth Southgate would say yes.
That is fair.
Well, what's the saying? Winning heals everything.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were also segments of Vanny out that never really ever died. They were always just there on the surface. So I'd imagine there's going to be some, like, even if things turn around, there'll be some Armis out crowd that continues to be around. But Charlie, you did mention returning home for Toronto FC, and obviously we all want to see that. But there are actually games being played right now in Canada, and they are much more entertaining.
What a segue! That was
from Toronto
fabulous.
FC recently.
He's a pro.
That was good. That was good, Mitch.
Thank you.
That was god tier segue.
Obviously,
that was
obviously Canadian Premier League opening weekend this past weekend. What were the highlights for you? Because, you know, I think we saw a great slate of pretty awesome games from the early part of the season.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I spent a lot of the weekend kind of pinching myself, being like, I kind of forgot what this was like to, you know, be able to do my job properly. But there are plenty of highlights. I think the biggest thing about it was just kind of having a lot of these personalities around the league kind of reintroduced to the soccer community. Rob Gale, probably the biggest one. Coach of Valor FC, goes on, you know, every interview he does after winning against the defending champions, and he says, now you guys have to give us our respect. We don't care what people said about us. I don't know what people had said about them, but
he's the Adrian Heath of the CPL, pretty much.
But no, it was just so cool, like having these personalities back out there. I mean, Jose Escalante for Cavalry misses last year because of travel restrictions. He was stuck in Honduras. He comes right back into Cavalry, and he's immediately just one of the most frustrating and simultaneously amazing players in the league to watch, because he's just under everybody's skin the whole time. He's a phenomenal player. He's cutting in from the wing. He's playing in crosses. I mean, he did that hilarious, audacious move to pick the pocket of York's center back and score Cavalry's second goal. It's just so much fun having these players that, you know, we talk about during the offseason and we haven't seen play it for so long. They come in and they back it up with just being soccer players and not just mythical, nebulous figures that exist on a website.
So who I think you've already done about 1,000 articles in the off season, but who you got winning this league, and why is it Forge for the third time?
I mean, I know that Forge did just lose to Valor.
And that was a good game, man.
It was a great game. It was a great game. Jeff, your second team beating your first team.
I had a wonderful dream that Bustos was still on Valor and linking up with Ricci, and they were devastating. And who's he on? Pacific now? Like that's his fifth squad in the CPL, moving around Bustos. Second, he should come back to Valor. make it free.
He's doing fine at Pacific, so I don't think he's going anywhere. But yeah, that was a great game, and full credit to Valor, who look like they're going to be really good this year, and they're going to get even better because they've got a lot of internationals to come back into the squad. But Forge, yes, they lost, but I mean, I don't know if they'll ever play, a more. I don't think they'll. I don't know if they'll ever. Excuse me, they'll never play a worse game in the league than that.
Wow.
Because there were so many obviously factors going into it. Them and York had the worst preseasons of any team because Ontario hadn't been able to see their squad in training until like a week ago when they got to Winnipeg. And understandably sluggish. And it was kind of funny just seeing before the game when Forge's lineup came out and we were all over them. Everybody saying this is maybe the best lineup that's ever been put to paper
in the
in
history of soccer football. Yes.
This is 2010 Spain level tiki-taka kind of football. And then they come in and Valor plays them off the pitch for 90 minutes straight.
Yep.
Which was really cool to see, especially if you're a Valor fan.
Yeah.
But they're never that's not gonna be a consistent thing from Forge, I think. There's plenty of time to grow into it. It's a long season, thankfully.
For once, yeah.
Thankfully, thank God.
Thankfully, yeah. You hedged your bets, though. You initially tweeted out Forge's lineup and said they're amazing. And then you tweeted out, but Valor also came to play and they're probably going to win this one. So
Valor
did
lined up
proud.
with 5 strikers and 4 of them were in midfield and it just totally worked. They were just beating Forge to pretty much every ball. And obviously Austin Ricci was one of the players of the weekend in the CPL after
Crutzen, which was craziness, absolute craziness. Yeah.
How much did playing at home have to do with that? Anything?
I'm not sure because we asked Rob Gale a few times about this, and he would say absolutely not every time. He was not having it.
You could hear the fans though. You could hear Red River Rising. Yeah.
And the way that I've heard it, it sounds like the fans were there to greet them to get on the bus to go to the stadium, and they were kind of driving alongside them with flags out their windows. And I think
that's not creepy at all.
I think that does as a player you notice that, right? And certainly after the game, everybody was talking about how that had been a part of it. Obviously, it's not a 30,000 person stadium screaming for you, but it's a little bit more than if you're in PEI and you're so far away from home and just you don't even have a sense when you're actually on the field that there's anybody watching you, right?
Right.
And you're in Winnipeg and obviously you're not living at home. You're not in your beds. You're not with your families. You're still in this bubble, which in some cases might be worse because you're in your home city, but you still can't go there. But then there is just this kind of sense of being still in your city and defending your stadium. I think somebody also made the point that they know that turf better than any other team.
Yeah.
Because they'll have been training on it a little bit longer and they played a full season on it, which is an actual tangible advantage.
Sure.
So I think there's more of one than Rob Gale would tell you, but it's still not huge.
Charlie.
I also think, as someone who's been to Winnipeg in the summertime and was blown away by how hot it was, I think the 2 Ontario teams are probably bugs. Damn. Also the Ticks. I'm sure the Ticks aren't at IG Field.
I would hate that.
Yeah, no, Ticks are no fun.
Charlie, I got 2 questions for you. I'll go with the first one first.
Right.
Is MVP. Who do you got it as, preseason favorite, I guess, for winning the MVP this season?
Yeah, my MVP favorite hasn't changed since midway through last season. It's got to be Marco Bustos, I think. Is just the betting favorite. I don't want to say it's his award to lose because he's played 1 game. But just throughout all of the months between last September and now, he's been kind of just on a mission. We've talked to him several times and he's said repeatedly, that's what I want. I want to be the best player in this league. Nice. And we know that he's capable of it. He certainly looked like he could be on Saturday against Halifax. And I think
you said Halifax.
I think it's hard to pick against anybody else or to pick against Bustos right now. Obviously, it's a long season and tons of other guys. I'm sure there's guys that are new to the league that will come in and make an impact like that. But I have a feeling that it's not going to be a Forge player this year, even if Forge goes ahead and wins the championship.
Interesting.
Well, they're
Marco
gonna be thrilled
Bustos.
about that.
Yeah. Marco Bustos obviously had some time with the Canadians men's national team, and I thought he looked very good there as well. So he's a talent that could definitely continue to flourish there. My second question is, Charlie, you have a platform right now. You're speaking to a lot of Toronto FC fans. A lot of people who watch this show are TFC fans. What's your sell to everybody to watch the Canadian Premier League? Why should people care about the Canadian Premier League, and why should they tune in this season?
Well, there's just so many more storylines. I mean, Canada's a lot bigger than Toronto, and there's a lot of communities. I think.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I don't
there's
really.
cities
I can't
outside
really,
of Toronto. What are you talking about?
I haven't been to one in well over a year, so I can't confirm that anymore. But yeah, it's just, I think that my favorite part about the CPL is just seeing all of these communities: Winnipeg, Halifax, Vancouver Island. Just there's just a lot going on kind of on the ground there that we maybe don't see on Twitter all the time, and it sometimes doesn't translate. But then we see these teams playing, and these players will talk about how important it is to them to be representing these cities that, I mean, I haven't been to most of them, but there's just this real connection that it feels like very authentic local football. And especially if we start seeing these teams playing at home this year, once this bubble in Winnipeg is done. Jeff is hopefully all right. But yeah, I think that's maybe my favorite thing about this league is just it's got some very authentic qualities of these clubs being part of their homes.
That was fun.
Right, Jeff?
Well, yeah, what happened?
Yeah. Oh, nothing. My wife's not here to answer the door, so I couldn't take a hint. But all's well. All's well.
All right.
I missed what Chaz was saying entirely. I hope it was good.
It was great.
Go to games. Go to games.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, you don't have to worry about me.
When you
don't have
can.
to worry about
when
me.
it's safe to.
I have another reason why the Canadian Premier League is great, which of course is all the young players that this really provides a platform for. And I think we saw that in a big way with Olympic qualifying. Obviously it wasn't successful for Canada, but this was a group that looked as professionals we've seen in a long time, from start of the roster to the bottom of the roster, which I think in a big way attributes to the fact that they're all playing professional soccer, and the Canadian Premier League is a big reason for that. Obviously, you're going to get this question every time I'm on. Who are the guys that some of the young guys that we should be watching for, whether they'll be in the national team pool soon or in the next couple of years? Who are some of those kind of exciting young players that fans should be excited about?
Yeah, I held off on the young guys in my last answer just to not take the wind out of Mitch's question. But there's so many names. I mean, there's kind of a spectrum from players who have started to get these tastes with the national team. Amir Didic. Canada can always use center backs, right? Marco Carducci is somewhere in the depth chart there. I think Thomas Meyer-Jaguar, who probably would have been a big part of that Olympic team if he hadn't been injured like the day before that opening game against El Salvador. And there's probably some other younger players that maybe we don't hear about as much that could be coming through. One name that, I kind of I'll throw at you is Valor's got Sean Rea on loan from CF Montreal.
Good
player. He was with Canada at the U17 World Cup, I think 2 years ago. He looked really great for them against Forge. And I've heard that he's been arguably one of Valor's best players in training, and I think he's like 19 years old. So maybe if there's a name that we haven't seen before in a CPL, or maybe if you're not Mitch, you might not have heard. That's one. But there's so many others. Like Noah Verhoeven at York is starting to play this more attacking role. He was kind of a number 10 or a second striker against Cavalry. That could be really interesting for him. There's so many guys, and I'm obviously like biased when I say that I want these players to be considered.
Yeah.
But I really think that there are a lot of guys that just add so much depth to Canada's player pool and just create a little bit more competition when you do have these camps, like the January ones, where you bring in a load of these fringe guys and let them just play and earn opportunities.
Absolutely. And what is it? The fans are allowed back July the 7th. at IG Field.
Mm.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. We were all looking at flights, but you need to be double vaxxed in the province of Manitoba. You need that Manitoba seal of approval, which obviously we don't have. But
yeah,
you did check out how much flights are and how long the road trip might be. Just saying.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I think the Sean Ray pick is a great one because that's a player I'm super excited about right when he got loaned there, and he's been great for Canada's youth national team. So that's a guy that I think Canadian Premier League fans should be watching this season. But Charlie, thank you so much for joining us. This has been awesome.
Anytime, guys. It's always a pleasure to chat with all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie.
We didn't even ask him one KJ question. That will have to be for later.
I also haven't even got to say the words Jack Grealish yet. So
right. Do it.
Get it
Get it out of the way.
10 seconds.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we can.
Player in the world.
Best short wear on the planet.
Oh yeah,
That's
he's got a swag.
Coolest shin pads in the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
His hair
pretty much
matches everything too, eh? It
Not
just
the
goes
best
all around.
driver of luxury vehicles I've ever seen, but
No, sir.
but definitely maybe the worst driver of luxury vehicles of any footballer on the planet. Keep him away from your expensive cars, but other than that, A-okay. What a pleasure, Chaz. Who you got? Who you got for the game coming up?
Ukraine and Sweden.
Ukraine. Yeah.
Oh, I hope it's Ukraine. I don't want to watch Sweden anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to see Sweden's away kits. I can't remember seeing them. The pinstripe guys. They're beautiful.
That is the most Jeff.
That is a very Jeff answer. They play horrible football, man.
Look, conveniently, I'm Jeff, so I should be giving out Jeff answers. But imagine that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
It depends on what kit they walk out in. If they come out in the standard yellow Sweden kit, then forget about it. It's all you. I don't want to see any more. I don't want any more of those ugly, trashy Puma away kits winning any more knockout games. This is important, guys. A message has to be made to the people, the Puma people, that this won't fly. The international clothiers kits will not fly.
All right.
I'm sure they're watching, Jeff.
I'm Mitchell.
Yeah.
I'm saying we should move on here. So
Yep.
let Chaz go.
Indeed.
Fair enough.
Cheers, Chaz. I have the power
Cheers,
to
Charlie.
remove you. I'm
Thanks,
doing
guys.
that now. All right.
No, always great
Let's
to have Charlie on. And as we said,
Awesome stuff.
yeah, awesome to have the Canadian Premier League back to, have some
So
fun
awesome
to actually watch while Toronto FC is struggling. But TFC do have another game coming up this week, of course, on Saturday against DC United. And, we've talked about this point a little bit, and obviously it doesn't help when they've won just once this season, but these are the important games, right? Like DC United's in 8th right now. And I know it's early in the season, and like usually you don't have to worry about that kind of thing this early in the season, but like right now, every time they play a team that's on that playoff bubble, like they almost have to win it. So it's a big game.
Mitch, we lost 2-0 to Cincinnati. Every game, every team is a big game. We are officially the underdogs of underdogs at this point. Like,
Justin Morrow said this after the loss. Is that the good news, I guess, trying to spin it in a positive way, but the good news is that TFC will be playing a lot of Eastern Conference teams the rest of the way. That's just the way the schedule is sort of made up. So there is still a chance that TFC, again, they're 8 points out. They put together a couple of wins. They're back in the playoff picture. But as Mitch is saying, like Cincinnati, Nashville, now DC United, these are the games that TFC have to win.
Should be running roughshod over these teams,
right?
I mean, we should be running roughshod over Atlanta. Atlanta's a mess right now too. I don't know. I mean, DC looks to be. If we had faced DC a couple weeks ago, I'd be more confident. I mean, if at this point I'm totally not confident. But if we had, but like it looks like their new coach is starting to click, and their system's starting to work. I mean, they were a screaming tire fire at the beginning of the season when we were beating Lyon, and now it looks like things are starting to come together for them. On paper, they're a terrible squad. On paper, they're an island of misfit toys. But on paper, we're world beaters. So if you're asking me to predict, there's a reason I'm number one in the WTR prediction league. Because I've been predicting TFC to lose for the last four games, and that doesn't fill me with any joy either.
I've dropped out of contention there, guys. I don't know what I don't know what to predict with this team anymore. I'm seeing Cincinnati, and I'm like, okay, that should be an absolute win, no questions asked, and then they go out and do that.
Yeah.
How do you predict this? You just can. I guess you're right, Jeff. Just go ahead and start predicting losses until they, I guess, turn this around.
Do you know how much that hurts my soul? Like, I'm pretty sure like 5 Angels lost their wings because of me voting against TFC in the prediction league. That's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders that I don't really need the burden of that.
That's a good kind of segue question I want to get to. And Michael Bradley called for this, I think, a couple weeks ago. It's the unity of the fans. Fans have to get behind them. They need them more than ever right now. If you're a fan, do you think you should be supporting this team through the thick and the thin? Or do you think it's okay to say, no, this is not good enough. We expect better. I will not be supporting you until you improve. Where are you at in that?
But I don't think Michael Bradley's talking about those people, because that's perfectly reasonable, right? Like, you know, I love this club, right? It gives me no pleasure to be negative in any way, shape, and form. Not doing it in this position is insanity, right? So, you know, Michael Bradley or anybody at the club asking me to just sit on my hands and hope against hope, I'm sorry, I don't buy it, and it doesn't work that way. You don't get to tell me what to do. You know, support and misery, support and glory, that's fine. We're all there. I think he's talking to the knee-jerk people, and you're never going to appease those people, right? It's just not happening. I mean, because then you've got to sit them down and explain why we can't have Antonio Conte, why he's never getting on a plane to coach TFC ever in our lifetimes, right? And they don't want to listen to that. They're like, what's GAM? Well, if you don't want to listen to what GAM and TAM is, then, you know, we've already lost. There's no beating those people, right? Unless we're winning, they're not happy. So why bother, right? It's a simple calculus to me. But for him to come out and say to the actual fans, you know, your criticism is unfounded, you know, excuse me, have you been paying attention? Our criticism is absolutely.
Did he say that though? I don't think he said that.
Okay, then how do you read it? Because once again, we're arguing semantics because of what limited information we.
Of course,
right?
Well, I mean, it's more so just it's a call for unity. It's more so like no matter like what, like we're struggling right now. We're in a different country. You know, we're not playing in front of our fans. We need your support right now, going through these hard times more than ever, because, you know, we believe in this club and there is a light at the end of this tunnel.
How do I as a fan not be personally insulted by that? You know, sorry, you're not cheering us well enough. Well, you're not playing well enough.
I don't think he's not saying you're not cheering us well enough. He's saying, yes, I expect to get criticism, but can you please give us a little bit of leeway here? What do you think of that?
Me? Well, then Michael, come out and give me an itemized list of what's acceptable criticism and what's unacceptable. No, seriously, because if I don't know what you mean by that, other than calling out people for saying anything derogatory, which is totally in our purview. You know what I mean? Like, either you're trying to appease the
Thunder Pierce saying in the chat, you can both support the team and criticize it at the same time.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. Both things can be true at the same time.
I think the comment under that is great too. The worst thing is apathy. If we're angry, it's because we care, which I think is also fair.
Yeah, and Tej wrote an entire article about it that you should read if you go on our site. But you see, I don't like the vagueness there. Like, you know, if your mom or dad is going to yell at you for being bad, they can't say stop being generally bad. You have to say what you've been bad doing, right? Otherwise, you're just saying stop.
I don't think he's calling out fans for being bad, right? Okay. I think he's just calling for unity.
But we are being unified, whether that's unified in hating them or loving them, right? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sure we're all pretty unified. So I don't understand it. Like if you're calling out the pitchfork mob, you're never going to win with them. Right? If you're calling out the knee-jerk armist people, don't bother. And I think Bradley's smart enough not to do that. So who is he targeting?
So let's say supporters groups, hypothetically.
So they can't say Armis out even while he's lighting the club on fire? I don't abide by that. You know what I mean? Like we can't say what's going on with Josie because the decision's been made in some vague front office boardroom and we know nothing about it. It works both ways. It's a revolving door.
Yeah,
man.
there's definitely no right answer here. There's definitely no right answer at all. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that because they're obviously going through some like crazy circumstances, and they're playing, in a different country where like I'm sure they'd rather be playing at home in front of their supporters.
Absolutely.
So like, do you have to give them some sympathy there?
I think we've given them a lot of sympathy there, and I think that margin's eclipsed. I'm also gonna move a couple steps backward here. I love Michael Bradley. I love him as a mouthpiece for the club, but we are 4 times too many already on trucking him out as the damage control spin doctor, right? He's their go-to guy. And we're getting to the point of ridiculousness now where these articles are just this unfocused, unfeathered, stop doing that. Well, stop doing that as well. Start winning, and maybe we'll stop doing that, right? Like, it is a chicken and egg kind of situation here. I mean, I said, I can't remember who I said this to, but there's something I hate about film festivals, and that is, they give the filmmaker the opportunity to get up in front of that audience before they show their film and basically do a mea culpa, right? Like, hey guys, listen, I didn't have $120 million. I really wanted to do a battle where you saw orcs invade that castle, but instead it's my cat wearing an orc suit and my bad Photoshop skills. You don't get to do that. You don't get to preface. You turn the film on and they like it or they don't. It's that simple. And that's the covenant you take with your audience. So any attempts to sidestep that and sort of influence people's viewing of a subjective situation, I think is a foul. And that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to get ahead of criticism by saying, well, you wouldn't be mad. You don't want to make Michael Bradley cry, do you? That's not fair. Like, it's not fair. So
good luck making Michael Bradley cry as well.
but Mitch, but that's essentially what it is, right? Like, that's essentially what that article is. Like, are you a good fan? Do you want to make Michael Bradley cry? Good fans don't make Michael Bradley cry. Be a good fan. That logic, and it's false to me. It's spin. It's damage control. And look, there are people that are honestly saying, why don't the reporters get up in front of Armas and basically ask a question like, why are you guys sucking so bad? Like, what's he going to answer to that? Like, Chris, you suck. What? Please explain to us why you won't suck anymore. And, a journalist doesn't get that privilege either. Like, there's decorum for a reason. Once again, it circles back to how we have so little to work off of, and we're just spinning our wheels here. You know what I mean? Right. I don't want, and I keep coming back to this. Armas isn't Vanny. We were used to Vanny. Vanny gaslit us like no tomorrow, and we said, yes, please, sir, can I have some more? Maybe that's not so good, but it's almost like the pendulum has just shifted to a guy who's extremely combative, in adversarial in a way that Vanny never was. And it's not fair to hold him to task for that, but it is whiplash, right? Like, we are in a state of like the pendulum just shifts so far that we don't know what we're doing anymore.
Yeah, it's tough when you're 1-7-2. Like, every question is going to seem like it's
an attack.
It's a question.
There's no good answers,
right? Yeah. It's tough, right? But let's move on a little bit quickly.
Sure.
I think we can get into a little bit of a TFC injury report.
The Michael Singh injury report. Hold on, I haven't brought it up.
Wow, it's been a minute.
Time. Where is it? There it is. All right.
It's the Michael Singh injury report.
Sweet.
Okay, so couple things here, and I'll give credit to Steve Buffrey for this one. It's not really the Michael Singh injury report; it'll be the Steve Buffrey injury report to start off. Alejandro Pozuelo. It doesn't look like he will be available on Saturday, so we don't know the extent of that injury as yet.
Doesn't look like he'll be available on Saturday then to watch the. No, I'm just kidding.
However, yeah, I don't know if Paz will be there. Good news is Steve Buffrey also reporting that Jefferson Soteldo, whose team was eliminated on Sunday at the Copa America, Venezuela obviously eliminated, he will be back and he will be eligible to play in Saturday's contest versus DC. So it looks like they will get at least one of their designated players back, which is
joy of joys,
something at least. And I'm excited to see it, like at least Soteldo play, because he did show flashes of what people are talking about, what people are hyping him up about, and I want to see him get a good run of play under his belt.
But he won't, because Paz isn't there to give him any service, so it will be the same thing as it was before, right? Also, I forgot about the third tinfoil hat theory, which is that Paz is now pretending to be injured, so that he doesn't have to play the TFC anymore. I was going there, guys. I mean, this is what happens.
So moving on there, injury report.
You're gonna have to get a Costco pack of tinfoil by the end of this.
Third is Achara. So Chris Armas told me, I think a week and a half ago, that Achara was about 2 weeks away from returning to full team training. We saw yesterday in a picture that TFC tweeted out that Achara is actually back in training. So, TFC still have to sort of make room on their roster for him to return into the squad. But the positive news is Achara is looking very close to returning. And, again, the flashes that we saw of him, that one jaw-dropping night at BMO Field, which feels like forever ago, the last time TFC played in front of home fans. That was that. So Achara is inching closer. Will Dunn in the chat, I see you asking about Erickson Gallardo.
No, it wasn't Will. Oh, I thought you said Will Dunn asked about Dunn and Thundercat asked about Dunn, but that would have been an easy mistake to make. And Gallardo, who's asking about Gallardo?
So, as Erickson Gallardo is apparently healthy to return for this team. However, TFC are kind of hand-tied right now because they don't have any roster room available to activate him, essentially. They have a lot of depth now that most players are back. So it's interesting to keep an eye on the likes of like a Julian Dunn, the Rocco Romeos, players like that who are kind of on the fringe with this TFC team. Could they be loaned out? I know Oliver Platt reported, I think last week, that Dunn or Romeo are both on the radar for the Canadian Premier League. Mm-hmm. So is that even an option? Why wouldn't they?
I don't know. I'm just asking because of the weirdness going on with.
I don't see any reason why not. Also, they have TFC too.
Yeah,
the quarantine. But
not just the quarantine, but they're like in their bubble thing now, right?
So the rules are changing for Canadian government, right? As of July 4th, that you don't, if you're double vaccinated, you no longer have to quarantine if you're Canadian resident or a PR of Canada. Right. So Rocco Romeo and Julia Dunn obviously are both Canadian guys. I'm not sure their status on their vaccinations, but if they're both double vaccinated, the quarantine thing shouldn't be an issue.
Cool.
So to answer the question, they should both be eligible to kind of be loaned to the Canadian Premier League. But those are some of the guys you got to look out for to potentially be loanees. And I think that's pretty much it for the injury report right there. Like Julian Dunn, Romeo are both back in training with TFC. Again, I think they still fall under that Gallardo kind of mindset where
we'd have to move somebody to activate someone.
Exactly. Yeah. But these are not guys who move the needle for this club, right? They're not a Pozuelo, they're not an Osorio, they're not an Iowa Canola. These are not those guys. So, but just something to note as this team kind of forms its roster.
Yeah.
My God, what a mess.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end it right there.
You don't want to talk about the Canadian women's national team and the Olympic roster, or you want to save that for next week?
We can. Well, the Olympics are coming up. That's at least something that we have to look forward to. Same with the Gold Cup and a couple of other things as well. So
July 24th.
Yes, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on that. So I think we'll.
We talked about it like 2 weeks ago.
We did.
We did it closer to the Olympics as well. Mm-hmm. I think that'll probably be best.
Yeah, definitely can expect some Olympic coverage from us, some Gold Cup coverage as well. Especially if like we said, TFC keeps not being the most entertaining thing to talk about. But who knows?
I know why we want to wrap it up. I just saw the TV. They're about to kick off. Cool. Yeah, let's do that.
What jerseys are they wearing? No, I'm just kidding. Thanks as always.
I'm Ukraine. I'm Ukraine today. Looks like.
All right. Thanks to Kevin, Sophia, and Edwin. As always, for what they do behind the scenes. Thank you all for listening. As always, we hope we give you some joy during these difficult stretches for TFC and at least make your weeks a little bit more enjoyable. On behalf of Michael Singh, Jeffrey P. Nesker, I'm Mitchell Tierney. Till next Tuesday.
Oh man, I gotta get the end video up. Okay. Bye everyone. Cheers.